When I was 17, I got into my first relationship, and at the time, I thought it was perfect. Looking back now, it was the start of the most confusing 2 years of my life. I had just started my first year at boarding school, first day, new place, new people, and then I see this girl. She was really pretty, like the kind of person you just notice instantly, and I was curious. I ended up making a small friend group in my class, and she was a part of it. We started hanging out more and more, and a couple months later she became my girlfriend. I met her family pretty quickly, and honestly, they were great. I got really close with her dad. We had the same humor, always joking around. He had this super loud, bubbly personality, the kind where her mom would get a little embarrassed sometimes. I just felt warm, like I belonged there. And before I knew it, I was basically part of the family. Every school break I'd stay with them instead of home. At school we kind of became that couple. Like, everyone knew we were together, teachers knew too, some of them would even gossip with us. It felt like this small, tight community where everything just worked. At that point, I genuinely thought, this is it. This is what a good relationship is supposed to feel like. Early on, she told us she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. But she also said it had gotten a lot better, she wasn't on medication anymore, and compared to her past, she seemed completely normal at first. She told us some stories about being in a psych ward before, but it felt like something she had already gone through and left behind. So in my head, it wasn't really a concern. But there was this one moment early on, looking back, should have told me everything. At our school, if you lived far away, you had to move into the dorms a day early just to settle in before classes started. On that day, she took an entire month's supply of her anxiety medication in one sitting. The school had to call an ambulance and she was rushed to the hospital. And the weird part is, she came back the next day and somehow life just went on like normal. For the first few months after that, things actually felt normal again, like nothing had really happened. And I think that's what made it so easy to ignore what was coming. But slowly, small things started changing. It wasn't anything big at first, just little mood swings. Some days she'd be really happy, really loving, and other days it was like talking to a completely different person. And I remember thinking, okay, everyone has bad days. So I didn't really question it. Then alcohol started becoming a bigger part of things. At first it was just normal, parties, weekends, hanging out. But for her, it didn't really stay normal. It was like alcohol would amplify everything. If she was in a good mood, it got intense. But if something was off, it got really off. There were moments where she'd switch completely out of nowhere. We could be having a good time laughing, and then suddenly something small would just set her off. And I'd just be standing there trying to figure out if I did something wrong. That's when I started feeling like I had to be careful. Like I was constantly thinking, what do I say? What do I not say? How do I not mess this up? It felt like I was walking on eggshells without even realizing it fully yet. And at the same time, I knew she was dealing with stuff mentally, so instead of seeing it as a problem, I saw it as something I needed to help her through. I told myself, she's been through a lot, she needs support, she'll get better. But there were moments that didn't sit right with me. Arguments that escalated way too fast. Situations where things got aggressive emotionally. And afterwards, it would always go back to normal again. She'd apologize, things would calm down, and I'd convince myself it wasn't that bad. I think that's what kept me in it, because every time something bad happened, there was always a version of her that made me forget it. But over time, those moments started happening more often and a lot more intense. There was one situation that really stuck with me, where she completely lost control and hurt herself right in front of me, and I just remember freezing. And I didn't know what to do anymore. That was the first time I started thinking, this is bigger than me. But even then, I didn't leave. And then some time went by, and that's when things really started changing. She started drinking more. At first it was just often, but then it turned into almost every day. She said she needed to escape her hallucinations, but the drinking just made it worse. There were times where she would just disappear for hours, no messages, no explanation. I had no idea where she was, who she was with, nothing. And I remember just sitting there, overthinking everything, calling her, texting her, trying to figure out what was going on, and getting nothing back. That feeling is hard to explain, but it's like this mix of stress, confusion, and honestly, fear. Because you don't know if they're okay, you don't know what they're doing, and at the same time, you feel completely powerless. And then she'd come back like nothing happened. No real explanation, sometimes not even an apology, but I could see in her eyes and smell it on her breath. She'd been drinking and probably getting high. And somehow I just accepted it. Looking back, that's when I started losing respect for my own boundaries. But at the time, I didn't see it like that. And then one day, this rumor started going around. People were saying she'd been sleeping with another girl. People were staring at me when I was walking alone. And I think one of the worst parts about all of this was no one told me. I didn't hear it from friends, no one pulled me aside, no one said anything. I just didn't see her for 3 days. 3 days of not knowing where she was, what she was doing, or why everything suddenly felt even more off. And then she came back to the dorm. Came up to me like nothing had happened, but I could hear it in her voice. She sounded ashamed, like she knew. And yeah, I knew she was probably drunk and maybe even high when it happened, but honestly, that didn't change anything for me. Because at that point, it wasn't just about what she did. It was everything around it. The disappearing, the lying, the fact that everyone seemed to know except me. That's when it really hit me how alone I actually was in that relationship. And there, at the 2-year mark, we broke up. And it wasn't some big dramatic moment. It wasn't this clean, satisfying ending either. It just felt empty. Because I realized I had spent 2 years trying to hold on to something that was falling apart the whole time. Trying to help someone who wasn't getting any better. And I think that's the hardest lesson I took from all of it. You can understand someone, you can care about them, and you can even love them. And it still doesn't mean you should stay. Because if you're constantly waiting for someone to change, you're the one wasting your time. And if you're thinking about leaving, you probably already know the answer.